Hey, what's up, you guys? So, today we are going to discuss this thing that I discovered not too long ago that was a thing, and it turns out that some folks, particularly the New York Times, I have linked an article to the description. Since 2015, at least, people have been writing about this, and it's safe spaces in college. And then I was thinking to myself, I have heard of this before because I have had uh, channels that I found that were discussing this stuff, and I decided to finally click on one of those videos and check out what it was about. And then I remember that I had watched something about this a while back, and I was just shocked because I didn't think that this was a thing that college campuses felt compelled to do. But if you don't know what a safe space is, to give a formal definition as opposed to my um, paraphrasing, a safe space is defined as a place or environment in which a person or category of people can feel confident that they will not be exposed to discrimination, criticism, harassment, or any emotional or physical harm. Now, on the note of physical harm, that is never, ever, ever acceptable. Like, no one needs to be physically harmed for anything. That is like out of the way. If you are ever physically harmed, then you do have a right to seek protection because that's bad, that's abuse, that's terrible. No one should ever have to tolerate that and whatever. You know what I'm trying to get at on that one. But on the article that I linked in the description, I started reading it and I did not finish reading it. So I do not know what direction it went, but I stopped at the fourth paragraph because it goes, the safe space, Miss Barron explained, was intended to give people who find comments troubling or triggering a place to recuperate. The room was equipped with cookies, coloring books, bubbles, Play Doh, calming music, pillows, blankets, and a video of frolicking bobbies, as well as students and staff members trained to deal with trauma. Emma Hall, a junior, a survivor of terrible things, and a peer educator on assault who helped set up the room and worked in it during the debate, estimates that a couple of dozen of people have used it. At one point, she went to the lecture hall. It was packed, but after a while, she had to return to the safe space. I was feeling bombarded by a lot of viewpoints that really go against my dearly and closely held beliefs. Now, I am not going to read any further for now, but immediately when I read that paragraph, I told myself, just how did this happen? In what world do we live in that this became necessary? How come we cannot go somewhere and be engaged, be debated, and not have to worry about possibly offending someone? How come you cannot show up to, I don't know, a very intense college course in which you're discussing social matters and, aspects of history are pretty darn dark. There's some dark stuff that has happened throughout human history, but now it seems like you have to be very careful about the words that you choose and what the topic is and who's present in the room because otherwise they may be triggered or hurt. And I'm like, look, you went through a terrible experience. I know that when you hear certain things, you may have flashbacks. As a person who has experienced some forms of abuse, I'm thinking to myself sometimes something that someone says doesn't really hurt me to the point that I'm crippled, but it does trigger memories. But just because it triggers memories doesn't mean that I have to run away from the conversation. Like, if the person ever asks me, hey Zam, suddenly you became very serious, what's happening? Or you went really quiet, what's happening? I tell them, Oh, don't worry, don't mind me. It's not you. It's just that recently I got out of this experience and this conversation is reminding me of it. But it's all right. It's just that I guess I did not realize that I was still processing some things. But when it comes to a college campus, what has the world come to that you cannot even engage in serious discussions like this? I feel like this is important to strengthen people's mental capacity. And if you keep avoiding conversations, avoiding certain topics, you will never learn and you will never grow and become better at things. You need to develop tolerance because the world out there, when you get a job and you start dealing with the public, dealing with different people, different mindsets, different backgrounds, different cultures, you cannot expect for people to adapt to you. You have to adapt to the crowd. And the reality of it is that more people are going to be unlike you. So, again, I'm sorry that you have gone through rough stuff. No young person should have to go through traumatizing things. But what I am saying is that by you avoiding the problem, you are not solving it. You are only hurting yourself because at some point when you go out there in the real world and you start seeing these things, you will not have your safe space to recur to. What are you going to be then? If you get a job and you're working with people, you get hired and you have expectations, or people have expectations of you, and dealing with the public, dealing with people, dealing with different personalities, and remaining cool and calm and collected, that's going to be part of the job description. And during this age, during these years, the years of your development, you are actively avoiding that. And it's not going to get any better or any easier because at some point, you're going to keep going through life as this broken adult who has never given themselves an opportunity to be mended. And then it's so difficult to repair a broken old person than to just develop yourself and strengthen yourself and be like, look, this conversation is tough, but I will expose myself to an uncomfortable situation so that I can become stronger, as opposed to, say, in a situation like this, expecting for an Ivy League college. Okay. I remember a time when you used to be able to just express ideas, have debates, and the experience at school and in a conversation in general, it was, I felt like it was good. You could actually be productive with a conversation, accomplish something, but it's more, what can I say? There is like this agenda out there of being okay, this thing keeps acting up, but I'm just going to keep rolling. Uh, Triggered meaning intense emotional discomfort, not just mild irritation. Exactly. I feel like most people nowadays treat mild irritation as the traumatic event, the traumatic statement. And I'm like, nah, nah. What is someone is probably disagreeing with you. They're challenging you. You don't know how to defend your point. You don't know how to defend yourself. You want to portray yourself as the victim, and as opposed to actually using your knowledge and wisdom and skills and whatnot to defend your point, you just want people to not challenge you, which is weird. Because I think that when you're convinced about your ideas being all that great, that's when you would be more than eager and excited to defend them, as opposed to just pretty much begging people to not oppose you. I don't know. I just wasn't brought up like that, and maybe that's why I'm having a hard time siding with this. But anyways, I guess I'll just never know. Did the video just freeze? It's back. Never mind. Yeah, I don't know why, but I guess it's because there's some bad weather that's supposed to be headed this way, so maybe it'll keep crashing and lagging like that. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I'm going to go back to the article and sort of like skim through it, see if I see anything else that's interesting. Safe spaces are an expression of the conviction increasingly prevalent among college students that their schools should keep them from being bombarded by discomforting or distressing viewpoints. Think of the safe space as the live action version of the better known trigger warning. A notice put on top of the syllabus or an assigned reading to alert students to the presence of potentially disturbing material. What? All people, well, most people in college are 18 plus. Why do you need that? Why do you need to alert people of the upcoming content? We're all adults. I just cannot think this way. I just cannot. Maybe I'm just a terrible person and I just don't get it and I like to pretend that I'm strong or something. But seriously, no! We don't need safe spaces if you're 18 years old. Some people trace safe spaces back to the feminist consciousness raising groups of the 1960s and 1970s, others to the gay and lesbian movements of the early 1990s. In most cases, safe spaces are innocuous gatherings of like minded people who agree to refrain from ridicule, criticism, or what they term microaggressions. You know, if you are actively being mocked and ridiculed, that is something. But disagreement is not a form of bombardment. Like for me, depending on what we're discussing, I can get pretty intense. I can get argumentative. It's not the argumentative type that's accompanied by name calling, insults, and yelling and shouting and spitting every time I talk or something. No, it's about you are trying to shoot down my point and I can bring myself back up, pick myself back up, and then maintain that competence. But if you consider that a criticism that's too harsh, it's like, no, I just know how to defend my point of view because I have thought about stuff before get involved in the matters and in the topics. See what I mean? So it says so that everyone can relax enough to explore the nuances of, say, a fluid gender identity as long as all parties consent to such restrictions. These little islands of self-restraint seem to seem like a perfectly fine idea. Again, in an education setting where you are there to learn and educate yourself, I don't think that you need to be protected from ideas. This is your education. This is your chance at being molded into an adult who can handle stress, criticism, dissent, and stuff like that. So if you keep constantly avoiding it, avoiding the problem, it's like a relationship. If you keep avoiding that difficult conversation with your partner, stuff is not going to get better. So, stuff in your life is not going to get better until you learn to expose yourself to those difficult things. And that's what I am saying worries me about these types of safe spaces. Because I feel like you're living under this bubble that eventually someone is going to trespass or someone is going to bust, and then you are not going to know how to handle your life. You're not going to know what to do. And that's what worries me. A lot of people this day and age are clueless as it is. So why do you need to be instigating further lack of knowledge? That's what worries me. But the notion that ticklish conversations must be scrubbed clean of controversy has a way of leaking out and spreading. Once you designate some spaces as safe, you imply that the rest are unsafe. It follows that they should be made safer. This logic clearly informed the campaign undertaken by a Columbia University student group called Everyone Allied Against Homophobia that consisted of slipping a flyer under the door of every dorm room on campus. The headline of the flyer stated, "I want this space to be a safer space." The text below instructed students to tape the flyers to their windows. The group's vice president then had the flyer published in the Columbia Daily Spectator, the student newspaper, along with an editorial asserting that making spaces safer is about learning how to be kind to each other. No. Because there are people out there who I'm sure are disagreeing with you and they are being kind about it. And those who do not sound kind, it doesn't mean that they're not kind per se. It just means that they are very assertive with their words. They're not soft spoken. They don't have your mother's voice, put it that way, which is supposed to be nurturing and whatnot. No, because these people are not your parents. The people who surround you in college are not your parents. These are people you're just sharing a building with. You should not feel the need to be comforted by these people. Like, yeah, you can have situations and reach out for support, but to actually be going out of your way to make this a place that takes care of you, no, that's what therapy is for. That's what the hospital is for, not your college, not your university. Your university is there to educate you. If you need help with your emotional well being, I believe that you need to be seeing a therapist in that case, a psychiatrist or something. Someone who actually dedicates to that, to that type of therapy, not your college campus where the professionals in there and the folks who surround you, your peers, are there for education. They're not there to be getting help on personal matters. Most of these people who are there are pretty ready to be getting their assignments done, get their degree, and get the hell out of there. If you need some kind of support, some kind of assistance, you need to go to the corresponding facility for that. Not try to shape your college campus into this huge playground. That's really the impression that this gives me. If you're really that traumatized about something, that concerned about something, you need to be talking to a professional who's actually dealing with that actively and not demand that your peers come up with a room of some sort where you can be comforted and expect for the campus to patronize that and tolerate that. I just don't see it. I cannot see it that way because I know the purpose of school, which is to engage your mind, to learn, and stuff like that, not to be your medical facility. But, anyways, I'm probably wrong. But that's the impression it gives me. And then again, I didn't go to college. Maybe if I went to college, I would know the pressure that these kids are going through. But honestly, even in high school, when I would take AP courses, we could have very challenging conversations and debates, and it could get pretty, I don't want to say heated in the sense that we're spitting at each other, but it can get pretty energized. And there were times in which I thought, wow, I thought that my idea was the greatest, but I realized I'm a piece of shit. I can be better. And that's what I did. I learned from that experience. I grew from that experience. And I thanked everybody in the room who was challenging and those who participated. It was awesome. It was a great experience. And maybe that's why I have this mindset. Because from a younger age, I have been exposing myself to this as opposed to avoiding courses like that because I know that they can put me in an uncomfortable situation. So, but anyways, there's really nothing else that expands on that I can see. Oh, look at that. There's a paragraph that goes, "I'm old enough to remember a time when college students objected to providing a platform to certain speakers because they were deemed politically unacceptable. Now students worried whether acts of speech or pieces of writing may put them in emotional peril." 2 weeks ago, students at Northwestern University marched to protest an article by Laura Kipnis, a professor in the university schools of communication. Uh, she had criticized or ridiculed what she called sexual paranoia pervading campus life. When it comes to that, I really feel like a lot of stories are really blown out of proportion because it almost feels like You know, anytime you watch a video that's heavily SJW and they talk about the so-called rape culture and all that, and it's like, okay, I know the world out there is a dangerous place. At any time, any moment, someone evil with ulterior motives can show up and they can attack you. Bad stuff can happen, etc., etc. It can happen at the parking lot at your grocery store. It can happen by your doorstep. It can happen anywhere you go to, pretty much. But guess what? More often than not, that is happening. No, because if that were the case, if this was really a rape culture like that, you would not be feeling safe everywhere that you go. And I guarantee you that you would probably be hearing sirens all the time. And more people will be in jail more than jails can actually hold. But that is not the case. Most places that I go to, I can go safely. 365 days a year, I can go many of those 365 days without any incident. So to say blatantly that this is completely a rape culture and that that stuff is happening all the time and that college campuses are infested with that, well, again, there are places where you know the group involved is like perpetuating that, and you also know that there are certain spots that display the symptoms of there being troublesome conducts. What you do is, if you're not interested in that, you turn around and you go the opposite direction. Because my mindset is avoid disaster from happening. So if you see a group of people who clearly do not look like they are functioning when their mental faculties are their most apt, what you do is you avoid them. You do not have to feel compelled to go to where you think the fun is taking place, especially during your years when you're supposed to be getting your education together. You know, that's my philosophy. If I would have been a college student, I cannot imagine myself going to parties, going to places where I know that people are messing with substances and then their faculties start being all kinds of, unreliable. And then tragedies happen, and then people who do not have a recollection of having gotten themselves involved in a situation, or when they do not enjoy the outcome of the situation that they put themselves in, they decide to take action against the person who they were involved with. Like, no, you need to learn to be responsible. In a situation like that, I don't want to make it sound like I would invalidate the account of someone who is an actual legit victim. But what I am saying is that a lot of these situations are very easily preventable. And if you are in a situation like that, I would encourage you to make the best decision. The one that makes it less likely that you will be a victim of this type of thing. I just want to empower people with the responsibility of making the proper choice. Because a lot of the cases that I hear about, it's usually something like that. Like what started off as an innocent encounter, an innocent party, or this and that, suddenly everything went to hell. I'm like, why were you there after like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or something, something? You know, like you can usually tell when the ingredients for disaster are there. You need to not be so naive and innocent, and you need to develop that sense of being able to pick up on those things, those hints in the environment, and that will keep you safe. But if you are constantly submitting yourself to places like this, to a safe space, you will never have conversations like this. Like, for instance, you will probably never encounter someone like me, someone who is pretty open and I love to discuss stuff like this. And then you will never develop the stomach and the mind that you need to be a stronger adult, you know? But then again, like everything that I say here and anywhere that I go, this is just my opinion. I'm not trying to say that what I am saying is the right thing or that I am right or that I have the right answers or that I can rid the world of evil, blah, blah, blah. I just like to share my perception, and then some of you are going to agree, some of you are going to disagree, some of you are going to challenge me. And I am here for all of that. So let's see what the comments are saying. La, 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 la. Shoot. Why is this so difficult for me? Why can I not like catch up so soon? Okay. White Knight Productions. Please tell me that prod is short for productions. I just filled that in. He says, "When I hope this is your first donation." Oh, cool! Thanks so much. That's really sweet of you. I appreciate that. Alice says, "Trigger warning are a well-intentioned but often abused idea for people with PTSD who would have flashbacks to traumatic events by certain subject matter. For example, if someone had been raped, they might not want to read about one." I can see that. But honestly, when it comes to traumatic events like that, I know that it will trigger a lot of memories, a lot of flashbacks, a lot of pictures, a lot of feelings, and reliving an episode. But sometimes I feel like exposing yourself to that trouble is what makes you stronger, especially in a setting where you know that you will not actually experience that act again. Because I don't want to make it sound like I would be telling someone, oh, yeah, make sure that you get yourself raped again so that you can deal with the trauma better. That is not what I am saying at all. What I am saying is that if you theoretically go through it, I feel like you will strengthen your mind more. Because I had to clarify that because I feel that the way that I make it sound sometimes is more of victim blaming. And trust me, I'm not. It's just that when I feel that people are blowing things up out of proportion, that's when I have troubles. And that's when I like to be the one on the challenging side of the spectrum. Yeah, but we can't just hide in a shell if ever we aren't comfortable. This video keeps triggering me, runs to a safe space, aka strip joint. That's funny. Oh my god. Part of being alive is coping with the uncomfortable nature of life. Oh my god, yes. Like at some point, there was a time in this planet when we didn't have our civilization all nice and neat and organized and all that, and we were living in the wilderness. And were we trying to reason with the creatures who had an advantage over us? No, we learned to adapt to our environment and become like superior to our challenges. That's what these people need to do. You do not need to be setting up your perfect safe space, your perfect shield. You need to just develop yourself mentally. This is a mental battle, but you are choosing to have an attitude for people to just be all soft around you. That's the feeling I get. Like, no. As a person who works with the public, I know that there's just no way of turning around some people, and you have to be willing to expose yourself to that and accept it. But just like every time I share an account like that, what I like to add is they can say anything to me. They can insult me. They can call me inefficient. They can call me all kinds of derogatory terms. But don't touch me. As long as you don't touch me, you are fine. I know that words have the potential of making or breaking someone. But when you are in a professional setting, I never let words that are untrue get to me. Like when someone says that I am inefficient at my job, I'm like, in my mind, I say, she's wrong. She doesn't have my experience. She doesn't know what I have gone through in my experience in this place. They don't know me. Why are you allowing for someone else to shape you into the person who you are not? That's what I'm saying. Like, as long as you know the truth, it doesn't matter what everyone else thinks. So I feel like these people are too overly concerned with their image, and maybe they just lack the confidence on how to address certain matters and even admit that they may not be well informed to have an opinion. Sometimes I sit on here and I say that you guys may say something, and I read the question and I go, you know what? I'm not well informed to have an opinion, but I'll come back to you. It's that simple. But these people want for the world to like adapt to them. No, I have issues with that. It almost sounds like that's what they want. Like the world owes you something. No, honey, the world has been here for much longer than you. But again, like I say, maybe I'm an extremist at interpreting things, and this is really not that bad. But that's really the feeling that I get. I just like for people to be accountable for their actions and whatnot. Let's see, where am I? Um, Most people don't. It's just nice to have the option of taking a break. That's all these things are supposed to be. It's a good idea, but people abuse it. I mean, if you need to take a break from something, what you do is you completely leave the place. Like sometimes I say, I need a break from work. What I do is I take time off as a student. I guess it's not as easy for you to take a vacation from school, but I think it's weird that when you willingly filled out an application to go into this institution, you should know and be aware that you are signing yourself up to all kinds of situations. But you are acting like this is a shocker for you, like you could not see this coming. No, you should be able to see this coming. You're going to a setting where there's people that are of all sizes and shapes and backgrounds and origins and religions and the ages and all kinds of experiences and walks of life. You should be able to anticipate these differences. You don't need to be protected from these. This is trying to give you a sample of what the real world is going to be. So to me, it's just strange that someone would be asking for a break. It's like you're in the middle of your shift at work and you decide that you just want to like quit on it. So this is like saying that you just want to quit on school because you cannot handle the social pressure aspect of it. Like, no, I get it. School used to have recess when you were kids. Kids? Are you a kid still? No, you trained for this. You were educated for this. This is what you grew up for. Hopefully, your parents also gave you a strong structure for you to be able to handle this type of thing. But I feel like we are focusing on being childlike a little too much. No, imagine if the people from the last century and all the preceding centuries thought like this and felt like this. Oh, we need to have safe spaces from everything because, no, mankind would not have made it this far. People back then, I feel, could handle stresses better than we can. How about if we go back to history and we study that, as opposed to try to create a new direction for mankind when it's not necessary? This stuff doesn't generally kill, but you're trying to make it seem like it does, just to make your job easier or something. No, it's okay. Take extra pressure, take extra stress, challenge yourself. I feel like people nowadays like to run away from challenges. I get it, just don't think it's necessary in a schooling environment. Ideally, a school environment is a relatively safe space anyway, just by design. Well, when it comes to physically, a school should be a safe place. But emotionally, I guess if you're constantly bullied, then yeah. But does that really happen? I didn't go to college, so this is a legit open question. To those of you who went to college or university or whatever you may call it, did you often see people bullying each other? Or is it the way that I visualize, which is people know that they're paying good money for the time that they're there, and they actually go there to do their job, do their work, do their homework, and study because they know that this is going to be difficult, this is going to be tough, this is challenging. So they are not wasting time and they're not doing petty stuff such as acting like children by bullying someone over their appearance or how they sound or what their ideas are like, what their hobbies are like, whatever it is that people get bullied for. What was the school setting like at a university? Was it like that, engaging and all about learning, or were people still acting like high schoolers? Please let a sister know because I don't know. I don't have a way of telling from personal experience.
So I am relying on you to tell me.
The stats they use. Shoot, I lost my place. The stats they use, one fourth, would imply that college campus is more rape-ridden than third world countries where rape is used as a form of warfare in ethnocide. Yes. See, a lot of the times I don't like to compare matters that happen in this country to matters in other countries. That's why sometimes when I speak about female stuff, I like to say, this is coming from the point of view of an American Western woman. Please do not come in here and say, try to live in a third world country where this and that is. Like, that's beside the point. I feel like you lack a valid point to challenge me with, and you're recurring to that as your last resort. Like, in a situation like this, that's actually a pretty good point because, like I was trying to say earlier, I'm like, you make it seem like every word that you go, it's like, the smell of abuse is up in the air. And I'm like, no, I go perfectly fine all of the days in my life without encountering that type of thing. I'm not saying that I am immune, but what I like to do is avoid going out in the dark, avoid being by myself, avoid unnecessary trips, avoid crowds, etc., etc., avoid places that I know are typically sketchy. And I guess that kind of behavior, that type of decision making, is what keeps me more safe more often than not. So, what I am saying is, I'm trying to make people be more accountable for their actions. Peanut Pete says, I'm offended. Did you just assume my gender? Oh, man. Wolf is lurking. Awesome. Even peanut have a male and a female sex. The biology of nature is awesome. Oh my god, you triggered me with three exclamation marks. Hit me with those unpopular opinions, Zam. You know that I am here for it. Hi, Zamri. In the past, can you share when you felt unsafe? If you mean physically unsafe, I actually have a very recent experience that took place last Tuesday. And to just sum it up real quick, I was at a Walmart parking lot and there was this guy who had suspicious behavior. And by suspicious, I mean that he was walking really close to where my car was. I was by myself, and then he decided to sit next to this one bench. And at the time that I was getting ready to leave, it happened to be isolated, whereas when I arrived at the store, it was actually kind of busy in that parking lot. But it's Tuesday, so usually it's a pretty dead day in retail. But he also decided to take out a cigarette and he started smoking, and then he kept like a really really tense pose. And then I looked at him and I said, I don't feel comfortable with this. So I turned on my vehicle. I backed up. When I was backing up, he gets up and he walks really, 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 really close to my trunk. And I'm like, Mother effer, if you see me backing up and you intend to cross the street, what you're going to do is you're either going to wait for me to stop and cede to you, or you are going to let me finish my maneuver so you can safely cross the street, or you are going to take a longer path so that you're not so close to my vehicle. But when I looked at my rear view mirror and I saw him getting on his car, I'm like, your car is right there. And you just started smoking. If you got out of your car to sit down on the bench to start smoking, you are going to finish your cigarette business and then go back to your car. You're not going to take your freshly lit cigarette to the car if you're trying to smoke outside of the car. So to me, that was weird. To me, he was also someone wearing a jacket and like baggy pants on 92-degree weather. Are you okay? Why do you need to be wearing that type of clothing on such a hot, steamy day? So to me, that was pretty suspicious because it almost seems to me like he was trying to conceal something. And then the fact that he walked so close to my car, it leads me to believe that he was trying to see if I was by myself or not. And then you had to be on the side that's closest to me, and we happened to be isolated. I just felt kind of uneasy. So in a situation like that, I said, I'm gonna go. And if you decide to just leap at me or something, I can make some noise with my car engine, or I can both also honk and I can scream, and someone is going to automatically look in my direction because at least my natural response to hearing some honking is to turn around and look at what's happening. Someone is going to notice. You're not going to take your chances. I don't think you're that stupid. But that was a time, the only time in my life that I can say I was out by myself, broad daylight. This was like 11:30, and I felt unsafe. But again, because I felt the sketchiness of the area, and B, the person, I said, "Dear car, take me away." And if he was on this side of the parking lot, I went that way. And I kept looking at my mirror. If I would have seen him following me, I would have performed some maneuvers or attempt to drive close to the police station or something. Because I really, 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 really felt like that person was up to no good. So that serves as an example of what I just said about how I know that I am not immune to danger no matter how much I try to avoid it. But in a situation like that, what I completely convince myself of is as soon as I get to my car, I sit in there and I pull up, pull out, and leave, as opposed to hanging out at parking lots. So that was really the only time that I have felt unsafe in recent memory. But other than that, I cannot think of any other experience. But that was a pretty good question. It's forcing me to think. I might give myself like 10 more seconds to search through my memory bank to see if I can think of another circumstance. But no, that has to be the only one. And then again, I'm not a very outgoing person, so I guess that would make me less prone to danger. Like, what I do in my day is work, maybe stop somewhere else to buy some snacks or buy food or buy ingredients for my cooking and whatever. And then I just go straight home. And I like to alternate my routes because routines just suck the life out of me. So to avoid getting bored in my day and driving, something that I enjoy doing, I like to alternate my route, and it also helps me learn the ins and outs of the city too. But yeah, I sensed that something was off, so I just went ahead and left. But yeah, Adam, if I remember more stories of feeling unsafe, I'll look at my journal. But if I have any more memories like that, I'll be sure to share them. But because I'm not very outgoing, then it's kind of hard for me to have anything exciting to say on that department. But yeah, I did not stream about that experience last Tuesday when it happened because it was like fresh in my memory, and I also did not want to, like, how can I say this? I didn't just want to turn that into something dramatic for the channel, like it's no big deal. I'm safe. It's all right. I knew that sometime it would come up, but maybe I was seeing the future about you asking me. but yeah, I didn't mention it because I didn't think that there was enough substance to it. I'm just deducing that this man was up to no good based on the symptoms that I saw in the environment. But maybe he's completely innocent. Maybe he wasn't trying to do anything. Maybe I just had my paranoia be triggered at random. But so I just in my experience, no. But then I was in a pretty good crap. I lost my place. In my experience, no, but then I was in a pretty good class. My undergrad cohort was like big family, and so were the societies I was in. Maybe I just got lucky or went to a good place. It could be a combination of your culture with going to a good place, but also going to a place where like minded people are. Because if you would have taken maybe, like, I don't want to be judgmental over the degree path that you chose, but maybe it has something to do with the degree that you chose, because maybe had you gone to a more challenging thing, like, by challenging I mean more socially focused course, like say law,
or something, maybe your experience might have been a little bit different. But yeah, again, I'm not trying to invalidate your setting. I'm just trying to say that maybe your path when it comes to the degree, it made a difference. Because if you go to a science school, you can expect some behaviors. If you go to a communication school, you can expect some behavior. If you go to a law oriented setting, you can expect certain behaviors. So maybe that's it. Masters, however, is worse than all nine circles of hell combined.
I can go perfectly safe outside in the whole night. I go usually out at 2, even in dark places. You know why? We don't have open borders like Sweden.
Good decisions. Hi. Hey, Coretta. Good to see you. And Mr. Man. Good to see you. I thought about you like 2 days ago. That's why parents should avoid to be much like helicopter parents. It's okay to have worries about your child, but don't do all the stuff what he or she could really handle all by himself or herself. I'm glad that you mentioned that because I remember a time when my mother was the kind of person who her style of raising was the following. It's like she sees the danger, she will orient us as to the danger that's in place. Say, do not go down the slide because it's 80 degrees out here, it's gonna be hot.
But if she sees us going for it, she's not going to like overprotect us. She's going to let us go through the experience.
And then we will learn by our experience that, oh my God, never go down a slide on 80-degree weather. It's not like she will let me jump into a like pond full of a swamp full of crocodiles or something. Nothing like that. But if it's a danger that's not going to completely like put your life at absolute stake, she would let us take the risk. And that's how we learned most of our lessons. Do you think flat earth is our safe space? Uh,
What flat earth? That's very telling.
um, Sleep paralysis is so cool. I had it once, was awesome. I did not know it was what's real for like 5 minutes after it. That sounds like an incredibly terrifying experience when I think about it. I watched a video a while back about folks with sleep paralysis, and I said I would look. I feel like I have a self induced sleep paralysis, which is I wake up in the morning, my alarm goes off, I turn it off, not even snooze it, I turn it all the way off. And then I don't get up until 20 to 30 minutes later. And sometimes it's I don't get up until 10 minutes before my shift, and my panic, like tardy induced panic, is what makes me get up and get rolling. But otherwise, it's like that's not even enough um, incentive for me to get up. Like the fact that I gotta show up at work and be there on time and make that money, like no, no. So I guess I trigger my own sleep paralysis. I know that's ridiculous. That's not how sleep paralysis works, but let a girl be silly. Yeah. I got sleep paralysis on a Greyhound bus. It was scary. It lasted 45 minutes. That's the most frightening thing. You just never know how long that's gonna last. So, yeah, let's not take for granted the fact that we can get up when we want to. Ouch, I had it on my bed, was for like 10 minutes maybe, and I saw how I switched places, was like jumping to other realities. Looking at Zamriev, I have sudden urge to jump into a pool. Is it just me? You know, I have been thinking about going to the pool that's right here by my house because I like to go at least once every summer, but they took a long time for them to open it up due to a maintenance issue, so I've kind of forgotten about it. But I'm hoping to go there. And for you guys who have not been here long enough, Sam has a swimming video.
Find it.
It's not that fun. It's just me. I never did a vlog in which I had like a full body shot or anything. So I just decided to do that because it's kind of weird that I always see like half of my body is just floating on the screen. And I'm like, let me be cool like other YouTubers and have someone film me from like a third person perspective. And that's about the only thing I have done. So But yeah, it's nothing exciting, so please have low expectations on it. For sleep paralysis, watch documentary Nightmares. It's about those who have it. They explain it. Hint, it's a movie. I could only open my eyes in sleep paralysis. I could not move my body. I was freaking out.
Never had sleep paralysis, but I have heard stories of it. Imagine if it's the night in the dead of winter and it's super cold, and then you have this paralysis, and then
Yeah, that would be awful. Like you're trying to like blanket yourself or something, and you just cannot do it because your body won't let you. I just no.
I'm gonna make sure that I have Dusty sleeping with me this winter. Keep me warm, you cutie.
That sounds fun. Sadly, my sleep paralysis experience was traumatic. Yeah, that's terrible. That's terrible. I'm bummed out to read that. Well, guys, I think this is a good stopping place. I completely became oblivious about that article. We pretty much saw the direction that it was going. I don't think that there's really that much to elaborate on it. So I guess we can all just read it in our own time. It's in the description. I will look at it later, like from beginning to end, and if there's something substantial that I can think about adding, I shall revisit it. But yeah, safe spaces, it's silly in my book. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for joining me. It was a pretty fun stream. I'm sorry that I had those issues in the beginning. I just never know when my reception is going to cooperate and when not. But what matters is it came back and it worked better. So maybe it just needed to like warm up or something. It was traumatic. Okay, seems like I'm caught up with the comments. All right, guys. I'll see you soon.